In this video, I'm going to cover how ufologists like Stephen Bassett and David Wilcock will be treated once we move into a post-disclosure world. Let's start out examining how ufologists like Corey Goode and David Wilcock will be treated in a post-disclosure world. In my opinion, David Wilcock and Corey Goode are going to lose a ton of credibility once we move into a post-disclosure world. The reason this is going to happen is because in that environment, the world is going to accept the reality that we are being visited. And people who once did not give credence to the subject, scientists, journalists, and so forth, are going to start doing so. So they're going to begin to look at all the various people who have gotten attention over the years regarding being experts on the subject, and they're going to scrutinize what they had to say. The reason they're going to do this is because they're going to have a vested interest in maintaining the quality and the credibility of the subject matter. What you have to bear in mind is that in a post-disclosure world, it's not just going to be the UFO community that's talking about this subject. It's not just going to be ufologists. All of a sudden, the dam is going to break loose, and all of the brightest minds on the planet are going to be focused on this singular subject. The greatest scientists, the greatest psychologists, the greatest sociologists, essentially the greatest minds on our planet are going to be focusing in on this subject. And so things that have been said, claims that have been made that just simply don't stand up to scrutiny and are not corroborated are going to be teared down in the most ruthless way that you can possibly imagine. And it's going to happen on YouTube, it's going to happen on national television, and it's just going to happen, it's going to happen in magazines, it's going to happen in conversations, it's going to happen on every level you can imagine. So what I would say is that if you have been saying stuff, if you have been putting forth stuff that doesn't add up, you may get by with that with little scrutiny now. But when we move into a post-disclosure world, it's not going to be pretty. Even though ufologists like David Wilcock and Corey Goode are going to lose mountains and mountains of credibility, the paradox is, as we move into that post-disclosure world, they will also be richer than ever and they will be more popular than ever. Because even though they will lose that credibility, there will always be a contingency of people who will hang on to every last word that they convey and believe and subscribe to everything they say. Let's face it, David Wilcock and Corey Goode are exceptionally talented storytellers, and they say things that are really fun to listen to, and there's just going to be that contingency that wants to believe in the really colorful stuff that's fanciful and exciting. And so there's going to be some people are just going to be compelled to subscribe to it, and they will be richer than ever, and they will be more popular than ever, because even though they will lose credibility as a whole, more people will be into the UFO subject, and the current contingent that truly buys into what they have to say, that contingency is only going to expand. So they're not going out of business, but they're not going to be taken seriously by the scholars and the serious thinkers in our world, in a post-disclosure world. They will not win that audience, because that audience will have all the skills and all the necessities to scrutinize what they have to say and to tear it down. Now, some of you may be big David Wilcock fans and big Corey Goode fans, and if you are, I have no issues with that. I am just telling you, I'm one person out of 7 billion humans. I'm just telling you my opinion, which could, of course, be wrong. But I take the track that Richard Dolan does. I recently was listening to an interview that Richard Dolan had on the Jimmy Church show, and it was from 2016. And Richard Dolan made a great point. He said, look, if we were all to believe every channeling that has ever occurred, we'd be pretty misled. We'd be pretty confused. So what's going to happen in a post-disclosure world is that if you have something to say, no matter how interesting it is, no matter how fanciful it is, if it can't be corroborated, if it can't be vetted, you are not going to be taken seriously by the scholars of our time. Now let's examine how Dr. Steven Greer is going to be treated in a post-disclosure world. In my opinion, he is simply going to be honored in a post-disclosure world. For one, in 2001, he started the Disclosure Project, where he went to the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., with numerous high-level witnesses of rank and station who all testified their experiences of interacting with the UFO phenomenon. And that occurrence in 2001 has rippled out in time up until this current day and is certainly part of why we are moving into a post-disclosure world now instead of later. That being said, I feel that Dr. Steven Greer has made some mistakes along the way that will taint his legacy to some extent, in my opinion. First way I feel he's tainted his legacy is that he has excessively committed to the notion that the government is going to engage in a false flag alien invasion. Now, on the one hand, you could argue that him doing this has been a positive because by being so committed to that viewpoint, it has actually decreased the possibility that the government would ever act on such a plan. On the other hand, you can make the argument that Dr. Steven Greer's commitment to the belief that the government is planning a false flag alien invasion is simply disproportionate to the possibility that it would ever take place and that the government is planning a false flag alien invasion. The best rebuttal I've ever heard to the notion that there will be a false flag alien invasion was put forth by Stephen Bassett. He basically said, what are the chances that the alien races would just sit back while sociopaths in our world framed them and killed thousands of people, tens of thousands, whatever it would be, and the aliens would just sit back and let their reputations be completely destroyed? What are the odds that they would be okay with that? I believe the odds of that are probably very low, and I believe that those who are capable of employing a false flag alien invasion, assuming they actually are, would discuss that possibility, that the alien races might not be okay with us, the perpetrators, framing the aliens. And they may not be, and therefore they probably would not be willing to take that risk of the aliens intervening, because the breakaway civilization would basically lose all of their power if they employed a false flag alien invasion and the aliens were not cool with that and intervened. I don't think the breakaway civilization would be willing to take such a risk. The second way Dr. Steven Greer, in my opinion, has made a mistake that will tarnish his legacy in a post-disclosure world is his commitment to the belief that 99% of all abductions are hoaxes. I recall Dr. Steven Greer being on the show Project Camelot, being interviewed, and he put forth that very argument that abductions are the result of my labs. And Bill Ryan wasn't feeling his argument. It was like, wait a minute, I have been abducted, and I can tell you right now from my experience that that was extraterrestrial in origin and was not the military. And see, here's the problem with Dr. Steven Greer's commitment to that argument. First of all, Dr. Steven Greer is not omniscient, so he can't know with anything even remotely level of certainty that abductions are all the result of my labs. And number two, it's kind of obnoxious to tell abductees that they are mistaken in their assessment and that it was actually the military and it wasn't aliens. That's just problematic because they would, in many ways, would have a better assessment of what occurred because they were actually there, where Steven Greer wasn't there. So Steven Greer's assessment is an opinion based on their actual experience. I'll go so far to say that in a post-disclosure world, I anticipate that there will be organizations that come together of abductees. They will not feel inhibited to be open about it because in a post-disclosure world, they will not be ridiculed like they would be ridiculed now, and those organizations of abductees will not look favorably upon Dr. Steven Greer, and they will have very persuasive arguments as to why Dr. Steven Greer's dogmatic position that they're all the military is simply untenable. The third mistake that I believe Dr. Steven Greer has made that will tarnish his legacy in a post-disclosure world is that he has miscalculated the nature of To the Stars Academy. As it is now, he has gone after them in a very aggressive way, saying that they are a manipulative force and they're only there to lead humans astray about the UFO phenomenon. Now, I don't personally subscribe to that notion. Dr. Steven Greer has also aggressively gone after Dr. Gary Nolan, who is also a member of To the Stars Academy, and has made the argument that Dr. Gary Nolan is being deceptive about his findings on the Atacama humanoid. Ultimately, it will be history that gets to determine whether I have simply been naive about To the Stars Academy or accurate, and it will be history that gets to determine whether Dr. Steven Greer has been accurate about the nature of To the Stars Academy or has simply miscalculated the nature of To the Stars Academy. Now let's focus on how ufologists like Richard Dolan and Stephen Bassett will be treated in a post-disclosure world. Let's start with Stephen Bassett. One thing that Stephen Bassett believes that stands out in my mind that could be scrutinized is he has put forth that he believes 2% of the United States population has been abducted by extraterrestrials. That figure seems really high to me, and I can conceive of a scenario in which academics and scientists and psychologists who have finally looked at the UFO literature in a post-disclosure world, they will still not buy in to the statistics of 2% of the US population having been abducted. And I'm sure there are many beliefs of Richard Dolan that are also going to fall under scrutiny in a post-disclosure world. What I'm trying to drive home is that when we finally enter a post-disclosure world, the ufologists who are given the reputation of having the most knowledge of ufology are going to come under intense scrutiny, because all of the minds of our world, all of the bright people are going to look at their analysis and judge their analysis. And the reason ufologists like David Wilcock and Corey Goode will be pushed to the fringes in a post-disclosure world is not because people aren't willing to accept what they believe. There'll be a lot of people who accept what they believe, but they will have been proven wrong about many of their beliefs, and the brightest minds of our world will simply reject them on that basis. To sum this video up, all of the ufologists that are alive today, that are going to be alive as we enter a post-disclosure world, they're going to have more attention, they're going to get a lot of notoriety, they're going to have more fans, they're going to have a lot more money, but they're also going to be scrutinized a lot more just on the simple basis that more people will be paying attention to this subject matter, and therefore more people will be judging them and giving an analysis of their analysis. Now, my name is UFO Jesus. And let me tell you something. I've done response videos to Dr. Steven Greer, to Richard Dolan, to Joe Rogan, to Secure Team 10, and to David Wilcock. And I've gotten some of the most vile pushback because I had the nerve to question another human being's analysis, to critique their analysis, to simply disagree with some of their sentiments. If you are a sensitive fan of your gurus and your messiahs, and you can't take someone disagreeing with your guru and your messiah, let me tell you something, you better get used to it. Because as we push into a post-disclosure world, critiques of your messiahs and your gurus, whether that guru's name is Dr. Steven Greer, or David Wilcock, or Joe Rogan, or Richard Dolan, or Secure Team 10, it doesn't matter. It's going to be ubiquitous. They're going to be critiqued. Everyone is going to air their opinion, and nobody, and I mean nobody's opinion, is above scrutiny. Now that I think about it, I also did a response video to Grant Cameron. I'm gonna put a list of all my response videos in the description below, so you can check them out if you like. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to subscribe, and if you'd like to support this channel, you can become a patron, or you can buy a t-shirt, or you can just slap a like on this video. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode.